Those stories about the creepy kid who never talked much? The one who always sat in the back of the classroom, staring off into space, lost in his own world? The kid who seemed to have a dark cloud hanging over him, making everyone around him feel uneasy? Yeah, that was Ed Gein. He was the kind of kid who made you want to cross the street if you saw him coming your way. The one who lived with his mom way past his sell-by date? Ed Gein was that guy. He stayed with his mother, Augusta, in their old, creaky house long after most people would have moved out and started their own lives. It was like he was stuck in a time warp, unable to break free from his mother's iron grip. Their home was a reflection of their relationship. Dark, oppressive, and filled with an eerie silence that seemed to echo through the halls. Yeah, that was Ed Gein. He was an oddball to say the least. Even when he tried to fit in, like wearing a suit for a rare occasion, he looked uncomfortable, like he was wearing someone else's skin. And in a way, he was. Ed Gein's life was a series of masks, hiding his true, twisted nature from the world. But those who looked closely could see the cracks in his facade, the glimpses of the darkness lurking beneath. Growing up in Plainfield, Wisconsin, Ed wasn't exactly voted most likely to succeed. In fact, he was more like most likely to be the subject of a horror movie. Plainfield was a small, tight-knit community where everyone knew everyone else's business. But even in a town where secrets were hard to keep, Ed managed to hide his darkest ones. He was the town's oddity, the strange man who lived on the outskirts, both literally and figuratively. He was more like most likely to dig up your dear departed Aunt Edna. And that's not just a figure of speech. Ed Gein had a morbid fascination with the dead. He would spend hours in the local graveyard, not just visiting graves, but digging them up. He was a grave robber, a ghoul who desecrated the resting places of the dead to satisfy his macabre curiosities. It was as if he was trying to bring the dead back to life, to fill the void left by his mother's death. See, Ed had this unhealthy attachment to his mother, Augusta. She was the center of his universe, the sun around which his life revolved. Augusta was a domineering woman, a strict disciplinarian who ruled her household with an iron fist. She instilled in Ed a deep-seated fear of the outside world, convincing him that everyone else was evil and corrupt. This unhealthy bond stunted Ed's emotional growth, leaving him forever tied to his mother's apron strings. She was a real piece of work, deeply religious, super strict, and thought women were the devil's handmaidens. Augusta's religious fervor bordered on fanaticism. She would drag Ed and his brother to church every Sunday, where they would sit through long, fire and brimstone sermons about the evils of the world. Augusta believed that women, other than herself, were the root of all sin and corruption. She drilled this belief into Ed's impressionable mind, warping his perception of women and relationships. Not exactly the recipe for a well-adjusted young man. Ed Gein grew up isolated, lonely, and deeply troubled. He had no friends, no social life, and no escape from his mother's oppressive influence. This isolation and emotional abuse took a toll on his psyche, twisting his mind in dark and disturbing ways. Ed's story is a chilling reminder of how a toxic upbringing can create a monster, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to be unleashed. After his dad kicked the bucket and his brother died under mysterious circumstances, cue the spooky music, it was just Ed and dear old mom. Talk about your awkward family reunions. Augusta drilled it into Ed's head that women were evil temptresses. Naturally, this did wonders for his social life. When Mama Gein finally croaked in 1945, Ed was devastated. He sealed off her room like a shrine. And then things got really weird. See, Ed missed his mom. Like, really missed her. So he started digging up corpses. Now I've seen some nasty stuff on dirty jobs. Sewers, septic tanks, you name it. The kind of jobs that make you question humanity's choices. Imagine crawling through the muck and grime, dealing with the worst of what people flush away. It's a dirty job, but someone has to do it. And trust me, I've seen it all. Or at least I thought I had. But nothing, and I mean nothing, compares to what went down in Ed Gein's house. This place wasn't just dirty, it was a nightmare come to life. Picture a house that looks like it could collapse at any moment, with an aura of dread hanging over it. The kind of place that makes your skin crawl just by looking at it. And that's just the outside. Inside, it was like a twisted museum of human remains. Imagine walking into a room and seeing things that should never exist outside of a horror movie. The walls adorned with grotesque artifacts, each one telling a story of unimaginable horror. It was a collection that no one in their right mind would ever want to see, let alone create. We're talking lampshades made of human skin, chairs upholstered with human flesh, These weren't just macabre decorations, they were the products of a deeply disturbed mind. Each item meticulously crafted, as if Ed Gein took pride in his ghastly creations. It's the kind of thing that makes you question the very nature of evil. You know, just your average Tuesday night in Plainfield. A small, quiet town where everyone knew each other, and nothing ever seemed out of the ordinary. But beneath that veneer of normalcy lurked a darkness that no one could have imagined. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes the most horrifying things can happen in the most unassuming places. He even had a belt made out of nipples. Yes, you heard that right. A belt, crafted from the most sensitive parts of the human body. It's almost too grotesque to believe, but the evidence was there, staring the investigators in the face. Each piece a testament to the depths of Gein's depravity. I'm not kidding, folks. The guy had a thing for skin. It wasn't just a morbid fascination, it was an obsession. He collected it, wore it, and even decorated his home with it. The police officers who discovered his collection were left speechless, unable to comprehend the horrors they had uncovered. He told police he'd skin some of the bodies and then wear their hides, like some kind of twisted Halloween costume. Imagine the sheer terror of realizing that the person standing next to you might be wearing someone else's skin. It's a level of horror that defies understanding, a glimpse into a mind that was completely unhinged. And yet, for Ed Gein, it was just another day in his macabre world. The trial of Ed Gein was a spectacle, drawing attention from all over the country. People were horrified and fascinated in equal measure. How could someone commit such atrocities? The courtroom was packed, with every detail of his gruesome acts laid bare for the world to see. It was a moment of reckoning, not just for Gein, but for the community that had unknowingly harbored a monster. Ultimately, Ed Gein was found not guilty by reason of insanity and was committed to a psychiatric hospital. There, he spent the rest of his days, away from the society he had terrorized. But the legacy of his crimes lived on, haunting the town of Plainfield, and inspiring countless horror stories and films. His name became synonymous with the darkest corners of the human psyche. Ed Gein's story has left an indelible mark on popular culture. His gruesome acts inspired some of the most iconic horror characters, from Norman Bates in Psycho to Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. These characters continue to terrify audiences, a testament to the enduring power of Gein's horrific legacy. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes reality is far more terrifying than fiction. Today, Plainfield is a quiet town once more, its dark past a distant memory for many. But for those who remember, the shadow of Ed Gein still lingers. It's a place where the line between normalcy and horror was blurred, a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface. And so, the story of Ed Gein remains a cautionary tale, a warning of the horrors that can hide in plain sight. For years, folks in Plainfield whispered about strange goings-on at the Gein farm, but nobody put two and two together. Then, in 1957, a local hardware store owner named Bernice Worden vanished. Last anyone saw her, Ed was lurking around the store. The cops went to check out Ed's place, and, well, let's just say they weren't prepared for the horror show they found. Bernice's headless body was hanging upside down in his shed, gutted like a deer. Section 5. Ed Gein, the gift that keeps on giving. Nightmares. Ed Gein's story is the stuff of nightmares. He was declared not guilty by reason of insanity, and spent the rest of his days in a mental institution, drawing pictures of women from his favorite magazines. Talk about a charmer. But here's the thing about Ed. He wasn't just some backwoods weirdo. He became a cultural phenomenon. His gruesome crimes inspired a whole new breed of horror in movies, books, and music. He's like the godfather of gore. Section 6. Norman Bates, Leatherface, and Buffalo Bill. Oh my, remember Norman Bates in Psycho? That creepy motel owner with mommy issues? Yep, inspired by Ed Gein. And what about Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? That skin-wearing, chainsaw-wielding maniac? Yup, him too. And let's not forget Buffalo Bill from The Silence of the Lambs, who makes a skin suit of his own. Ed Gein's fingerprints are all over these iconic horror villains. You gotta hand it to the folks in Plainfield. They've got a sense of humor about their most infamous resident. I mean, they turned Ed Gein's story into a musical comedy. But even with the jokes and the songs, there's no denying that Ed Gein cast a long, creepy shadow over that town. It's like a permanent stain on the fabric of their history. Ed Gein is one of those guys who just fascinates us, even though he totally grosses us out. He's like a car wreck. You don't want to look, but you can't help yourself. Maybe it's because his story taps into our deepest fears, the fear of the unknown, the fear of what lurks in the dark. Or maybe we're just morbidly curious about what makes a guy tick when he starts making lampshades out of human skin. So, what's the moral of the Ed Gein story? Well, for starters, if you're ever driving through Wisconsin, you might want to skip Plainfield. This small, seemingly quiet town holds a dark and twisted history that has left an indelible mark on the annals of true crime. Plainfield might look like any other rural town in America, with its serene landscapes and friendly locales. But beneath this facade lies a chilling tale that has inspired countless horror stories and movies. The name Ed Gein is synonymous with some of the most gruesome and macabre crimes ever committed, and his story is one that continues to haunt the imaginations of many. And if you meet a guy who's a little too into his mother and has a strange collection of bones and leather, run. Ed Gein's obsession with his mother and his bizarre hobbies were more than just eccentricities. They were red flags that something was deeply wrong. His house was a veritable chamber of horrors, filled with ghastly artifacts made from human remains. From lampshades made of skin to belts crafted from nipples, Gein's home was a grotesque museum of his twisted mind. It's a stark reminder that sometimes, the most unassuming individuals can harbor the darkest secrets. So, trust your instincts, and steer clear of anyone who gives off those unsettling vibes. Ed Gein's legacy is a reminder that sometimes, truth is stranger and way more disturbing than fiction. His heinous acts have left an indelible mark on popular culture, inspiring characters like Norman Bates in Psycho, Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs. These fictional characters, while terrifying, pale in comparison to the real-life horrors perpetrated by Gein. His story serves as a grim reminder that the human capacity for evil can sometimes surpass even the most twisted imaginations of horror writers and filmmakers. He's a cautionary tale for the ages, a reminder that monsters aren't just found in fairy tales and horror movies. Sometimes, they're real. The story of Ed Gein is a chilling testament to the fact that real-life monsters can exist, lurking in the most unexpected places. His crimes shocked the nation and forever changed the way we perceive safety and normalcy. The idea that someone so seemingly ordinary could commit such atrocities is a sobering thought, and it forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality that evil can reside anywhere, even in the most mundane settings. And sometimes, they live right next door. The story of Ed Gein is a stark reminder that we never truly know what goes on behind closed doors. The quiet neighbor who keeps to himself, the friendly face you see at the grocery store, anyone could be hiding a dark secret. It's a chilling thought, but one that underscores the importance of vigilance and awareness. While it's important not to live in constant fear, it's equally crucial to trust your instincts and be mindful of your surroundings. The legacy of Ed Gein serves as a haunting reminder that sometimes, the most terrifying monsters are the ones we least expect. Ed Gein might be gone, but his story continues to haunt us. He's a reminder that the line between sanity and insanity is thinner than we'd like to think, and that sometimes, the most terrifying monsters are the ones we least expect. So, the next time you're feeling brave, turn off the lights, curl up with a good horror movie, and remember the man who inspired it all, Ed Gein, the Butcher of Plainfield. Just don't blame me if you can't sleep with the